Hi, everyone. I'm really glad to be engaging with you on this very topical topic. I think there's pretty much no one in the world who's probably not had multiple conversations on the pandemic, what it means, what the data means, is it going to get over, what's going on. So what we're going to talk about today is really human connections in a pandemic world. What does this even mean? Man is a social animal. Okay, this is something that we learned as a sentence in school. But what that means is that connection is really at the core of what people need, people want, and that's how the species has pretty much progressed. Okay, connections are crucial to the identity of human beings, and this pandemic has just put that into serious question because everything that we used to use to connect, which is human touch, conversations over coffee, traveling, etc., has all become a question mark. So not surprisingly, it's one of the most talked about topics, and it's in this very interesting time. It's how to keep up connections in the personal as well as the professional space. What I'll talk about today is that in the context of qualitatives, how do we think about human connections in this pandemic affected world? What I'll do is I'll give you a very brief introduction to myself before we move. Okay, so I am born and brought up in India. I am a Bombay girl, and I left India when I was about 17. I did my graduation from the US. I then studied my MBA in IIM Ahmedabad from 2003. Procter and Gamble has been my first and only job. So I've been with Procter for about 18 years, across different categories, across different countries. So I've done fem care, I've done fabric enhancers, laundry, I've done a capability role, I've done baby care, and now I'm also doing insights across the EMA region. And the countries that I've worked in are APAC. So think of it as Southeast Asia, Japan, Korea, Australia. There's India. I also did a bit of work on China, and now I'm working on some of the Middle East and African markets as well. That's not just Procter and Gamble is definitely not my only identity. So I do a lot of stuff. I try to do a lot of stuff outside of Procter, which is things like jewelry making and dancing and walking. I like to feel like I exercise a little bit different part of my brain versus a lot of the numbers and the Excel and this hard-nosed corporate piece. And I actually think that really helps work as well. And I'll touch on that as we go on. I ask a lot of questions. I think that's really been the crucial part of why I've loved this job. I love this area because I think we're really in the business of asking the right questions and hence being able to answer them. Yeah, with that, I'll move to the meat of the presentation. Now, I call this all of us who are interested in qualitatives know a bit of what it takes to do a good qualitative. We may or may not be always able to do it, but we know what is needed. We need to observe for what the environment is, the people she's living with or not, the way the approach road to her house is, what's the temperature around her, like what is it that is beyond just the interviews and the questions, right, that people have. We need to immerse in her context and her world. We not only get data from what she says, but we also get data from the shopkeeper who is right down the street, or we get data from, when we're going from the airport to the cab, then we talk to the person. We also get data from, when I go to a Starbucks and I see that, oh, there's actually a Sakura kind of limited edition gift card, and I'm like, would that be an idea for our brand, which is, should we think about limited editions? So this is where our brains capture a lot of information that is outside of, very direct questions, and then we make connections, and that's what creates ideas, right? Connection with her is of course critical. We need to be able to get behind that facade that everybody portrays to the world, and get to what her real desires are, what her fears are. Where is it that she's feeling nervous? Where is it that she's feeling vulnerable? And hence be able to help her. We know body language is very important. When the mom-in-law is sitting in the room and monitoring every answer of hers, we need to be able to see whether she's tense, whether she's comfortable. How is it that her decision making, what's the context of her decision making? Is she able to make her independent decision, or does she need approval from different people and areas? To make this connection, it's very important to give time, right? I mean, that is how any good relationship or any conversation, a good conversation actually goes in, that you need time. So now come the pandemic, and so much of this has changed, right? It's become, we used to have flights, we used to have crowd gatherings, we used to have our faces were even seen, right? And now suddenly we have that we don't have that anymore. We are not able to even look at her face many times, and or we are seeing, like kind of these pixelated versions of her. Many times there are even background filters. We're not even able to see what her house looks like. So how do we really follow those commandments when we're in this situation, right? I think that's really the question on okay, so a lot of our traditional ways of connecting, of understanding, have kind of gone. So what do we do? My big learning, right, from this entire time and before that, is that while the context changes, solutions change, problems don't. One of the biggest, and this is true not just for qualitators, it's true across fields, right? So if I think about transportation over the generations, it fulfills one constant need, which is get to a place faster with fewer resources. That's what pretty much every transport innovation has solved for, right? From the humble horse cart to the jets that we know now, right? Think of communication. The internet and the smoke flares have something in common. They're basically both used to communicate. Of course, the internet is used for a lot more as well, but that part of the internet and the smoke flare have that in common. Yes, absolutely. We have it's become faster. The quantum of data that we can send to people has changed, right? Versus a smoke flare. But the need and the problem is the same, right? And that's exactly how we need to think about what we're solving for, and the solutions will start appearing. This change is not the first one. It is not going to be the last one. But if we focus on the problem that we're solving for the consumer as well as for us, the solutions will change, but you'll be able to navigate that situation no matter what. So now, how do I solve for the 5 commandments, right? Enter the new age superhero. Now, what can this be? Okay. Of course, technology. So that's the obvious one, where while a lot of the context has changed in terms of the problem that we're trying to solve, it's also changed in the types of solutions that are available over there. So I literally think of it as a superhero, and every age will have its own superheroes. So there is video, there's social listening, there is of course, there is virtual shelves, there are eyeglasses, there is mobiles. We have a lot of these different tools available, and none of this is going to be a surprise to you, of course, right? I mean, there are all of these different things there. I'm sure you've gotten different pitches. I'm sure some of you have solutions which can manage this. You have things like GoPro. You have a lot of the new things coming. I don't know what Facebook is doing with the metaverse, but at some point something like that will come in. You have virtual reality. You have a lot of these things which are these disparate capabilities, and but they're really, kind of, if I take the superhero example, it's like your weapon, right? It's like your superpower that you can use to actually solve the problem. So how does this all come together? The crux of it, right? And without these are all tools. Really, the magic that makes this powerful is creativity. And I cannot emphasize this enough. You need to know how to use these tools to solve the problem, right? Without this, the tools are just the tools. They are not going to work for you in the best way possible. This was what will set you up for success across different situations, right? So today it's the pandemic, tomorrow it might be something else, hopefully good, and day after it will be something else. The crux though, and the tools will keep changing. The thing that will not change and the thing that will keep you ahead of the machines and the AI and all of that, right, is your creativity. And I'll also say this, that while the pandemic is something that has happened globally, right, and a lot of people are affected by it, what we are also seeing is that if you just look at the disparity in contexts across the markets, so think of a market that is fully penetrated with internet. It has the best internet speeds. I mean, think about a Korea, right? I mean, fabulous internet speeds, very, very highly developed situation. And think of a country where you don't even have 24 hours electricity, right? You don't have running water. A lot of people have very basic phones. So you still need to be creative to be able to solve that same problem across these contexts, with possibly some of the tools that are possibly common and some tools that are different. So really being creative, being able to adjust the solution to the problem and the context is critical for success. And this will lead to continued success, right? I mean, it's not just about this situation, it's about any situation. So how do we use this, right? So I'll give you some examples. The way I usually think about it is that you have your 5 commandments, right? So that's a shorter version of those 5 commandments. And then you see how these tools can help you do that. So one of the things that we talked about is connecting with her, right? One idea, do pre-connect calls. I mean, because earlier, right, you were able to go to her house, she was able to see you in flesh and blood, she was able to, kind of put some sense of how she feels about you, what your vibe is, and hence be able to trust you. But now she may not be able to do that. A lot of it could be on video, right? So do pre-connect calls. That makes her feel like, okay, it's not just the first strange conversation that she's having with this person. She kind of knows you from earlier, and this is now the second conversation. So it becomes a little bit easier, and it becomes a bit simpler to establish that trust versus just hi, I'm here, I'm at this part of the screen, and you're at that part of the screen. You can use things like eye tracking, right? So you can use things to actually navigate. So earlier you were following her around in the shop, but now maybe you use Google Glass. Maybe you use something that the Facebook has partnered with Ray-Ban. Use a GoPro to really see how does she navigate the store, how does she get into her house, is she using public transport? And I could argue that maybe you'll actually have a better solution over there, because earlier, someone is following her around and maybe she's not that comfortable. But now she's doing her own thing. Then you can do things like, sorry, I'll just move this, use emojis, right? So emojis seem to be like this new language. Sometimes I feel like we should just classify it as a language, which is that on the beyond words. A lot of times what we do is try and understand the emotion behind something. And now, with these different ways of communicating, maybe ask her to tell you how she feels during a particular situation, during, while she's doing her laundry, or while she's doing something else, while she's making a new decision. And that can actually give you a lot of rich data versus just the standard words. Then you can use virtual shelves. You have a lot of shelves that can, you can look at adjacencies, you can look at pricing promotions, you can put on different messages and start understanding what she feels. It doesn't always have to be a physical store. And again, this again could really give you a lot more flexibility. In a physical store, you'll be talking about it very hypothetically. What if this was here? What if that were there? What if this price was here? But with this, you can actually change it around. So really, it could be a better enabler in you being able to understand how she reacts to different situations. Then you can do IoT. IoT is really in its infancy, but I think given it's a technology that started to be used more, we can look at how do we observe how she uses particular products. What is it that we want to do? How can we think about our different ways of asking for data on how do you use this versus actually monitoring it. So again, like I said, it's in its infancy, but keep your eyes open for these new technologies because you might find a very creative way to use this. There's of course virtual reality, right? I mean, you can start seeing whether the technology actually enables you to do something that earlier you weren't quite able to, or you were able to do with a lot more resource. Instagram pictures, right? You were talking about context and all of that. And so many beer companies, they look at the Instagram pictures, they look at where beer is being consumed, who is it being consumed by, and they're able to understand that, what are the situations, what are the emotions, who are the people that beer seems to connect. Video is one of my favorite tools. It is so ubiquitous, it's there everywhere, and it can do so much. I find that this is one of the most powerful tools in our arsenal. You can replicate going to the pantry. So you normally, if you visit her house, you might go to the pantry, you might look at her shelf, you might go to the her cosmetics cupboard and look at what's out there. And and now it feels like, oh, I'm not really able to do that. Or you were sitting in her house and you were able to observe what are the different things there in her house, what's there on the decorative shelf. But with video, but you can still ask her to make a video, right? I mean, you can still ask her to kind of make a video of her pantry. You can ask her to make a video of her house. You can ask her to make a video of how does she enter the house, what is the door like, how does she cook, how does she do her laundry. There is so much that you can just do with the video, which earlier may not have been that possible. And this is really a tool that can help you on the immerse part of the work, right? The next one is simple notes. I don't want you to take away that it all has to be like this technology driven thing. It can literally be simple notes. And what is important in simple notes is that what are the questions, right? So what are the questions that you are asking her to answer through those simple notes? And it can be very simple as saying, okay, how did you feel during this situation? Okay, at 12 p.m. each and every day, what were your feelings right now? Literally just jot it down. And many times what will be critical in this one is what are the questions that you're asking, right? So what is it that you're asking for, so that those notes make sense. It cannot just be a random take notes, of course, and I think all of us will be aware of that. But it's critical to understand that what is it that I'm trying to observe via the notes. Unboxing videos. I mean, Apple really started that entire trend, I think, of unboxing. As you're thinking about packaging learnings, right? Is that something that you want to do? Like actually get her to create a video while she's opening the packaging, how does it really help? So that you can start understanding what she's feeling, what she's thinking, what is her stream of conversation in her own head. And again, this is something that's very topical. It is something that she'll be familiar with, especially as you get to younger and younger groups. This is something that definitely can help. Multiple connects. I think on the time piece, right? That is something that people talk about. That how I used to spend so much more time with the consumer, and now how do I spend the time? But time doesn't have to be physically spent, and I think that's the mindset shift. Earlier, and I would argue that maybe earlier when you were actually going to a country or you're actually talking to people, you had that 1 hour slot, you had a 1.5 hour slot, you had 2 hour slot, right? and you had to kind of finish everything in that much time. And or rather, most of the qualitatives were like that. But now maybe you can actually engage with her over multiple connects over an entire week. Maybe you can say, oh, on Monday when you're going grocery shopping, can we just have a conversation right after? Oh, on Tuesday you were going to take you were taking a child to school. Oh, can we have a conversation right after? So think about time as expandable, right? It doesn't have to be in that physical space. It doesn't have to be at that particular time, but it can now be much more fluid. And again, you might actually end up spending more time and more quality conversation because now she's getting more and more familiar with you versus having to compress everything in those 2 hours. Um, Mobile diaries, of course, so many people have great solutions for this, that you can literally ask her for stuff before, you can ask her for stuff after, you can be connected with her, you can literally ask her right then that, oh, take a picture of where you are and just upload it. Take a picture of how you're feeling right now, just upload it. Okay, what were the thoughts going on in your mind? So I would say that there are so many of these technologies that if you put it in the section of saying that these are the things that I need to do for a good qualitative, and then link it back to, what are the technologies available, you'll have a great way of figuring out how to solve for some of the problems that we face because of the lack of physical proximity. Yeah. The other, there's also social listening, of course. So on social listening, I think all of you are probably aware of it, is that there's so much out there on the internet, and it doesn't have to be this formal social listening, right? I mean, just go look at reviews, just go look at some of the blogs, and you get so much out of it. Follow some of the influencers, and you will really have a much better conversation. And this is beyond pandemic or not pandemic. I find that my quality of conversations with the consumer has really gone up if I've done some of this homework, right? Because then it gets me to a place where I'm not asking very basic questions and she's like, what? Like, you don't even know that much. What's wrong with you? So definitely use a lot of these technologies to be able to do those 5 commandments. The other piece that I do want to touch on is that I find that the thing that is enabled by a lot of the physical proximity is that you collect data consciously or unconsciously through all of these different senses. So, you're seeing different things, you're hearing different things, you're hearing background noise, you're hearing whether there's traffic, whether there isn't, you're seeing what the textures are, you're kind of smelling that, okay, is it, can I smell a lot of food smells over here? Can I smell smoke? Um, and, you're possibly, depending on the category you're tasting, right? Like whether it's a very spicy kind of a food palette, or is it more mild, things like that. Now, this is something that very easily gets lost when you're just interacting on a screen, right? So I would say be very deliberate about it. Here is where you can ask her, you can ask the recruiter, you can, kind of ask other people who are in the market to pay attention. So be deliberate about that. This is the data that you're missing. And so how is it that you can actually record some of these things? So ask her, what do you smell right now? What do you hear right now? Can you just share with me what the ambient noise is like? What do you smell? How does this thing taste? Right. So even on site, go beyond just looking at her. Like I said, do the videos of the environment, and that will really help kind of bridge some of this gap. No, it's not going to completely close it, but it will help bridge some of this. And actually what you might find is that you find things that you know earlier your personal bias and your personal limitations were coming in because you were relying on yourself to do this, but you may get answers that are completely surprising to you and open your mind beyond what you would have originally thought. I'll actually end with this slide again, okay? If there are two things that you take away, it's that the problems don't change. The tools around have and will continue to change. The only way out is really keeping what the problem is front and center, keeping those commandments front and center, and then using your creativity to match the solution to the problem that you're solving, right? I would say that what I have actually found is that forcing myself, right, to think in a different way has actually expanded the kind of quality that I have been able to get. So things like, being able to spend time over multiple connects, or being able to ask her, what is it that she smells, feels, etc. Being able to look at things before, look at things after, being able to follow her, not just in those 2 hours, but, also saying, okay, can you just take notes when you're doing your public transport, or can you just take notes when you're doing a particular task? I find actually a lot of the data can be richer than what you had earlier. So I'd almost say that think of it, this pandemic, not as that, a lot of gates are closed and stuff. Yes, it is for the pandemic, but in terms of understanding the consumer, it possibly has opened gates that were never opened before. And I think we'll actually go back to thinking that, wow, just going and collecting data when we were traveling, right? Or in person was so limited. Like there's so much more that we can get. So I'll leave you with that thought. I hope it inspires you to, really think out of the box and have fun. I think that's the good part about qualitatives, that it doesn't have to be standardized and not everything has to follow rules. So do have fun with this. And I think you'll find that you get a lot of rich data that possibly you weren't getting earlier. So thank you very much. I'll end with that. Um, I'm very happy to hear any comments, any questions that you may have, or anything that sparked in your minds. Very happy to engage. I hope that was useful. Thank you.